Mr. Ranjha is back. Today we have Luqman from TikTok. Luqman, how you doing, my brother?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Thank you very much.
Brother, thank you so much for coming down. And I think, how do all the Gores say? Is it Happy Father Christmas Day? Is it?
I was lucky I come down on this day as well, like I mentioned to you before. Just no traffic, quick guy here, took me 40 minutes.
MashaAllah, brother. And you came from what, the Midlands somewhere?
Stoke-on-Trent.
Stoke-on-Trent. Right, wow. Brother, I've been loving your content on TikTok. MashaAllah, you've done really well there. You've got a lot of followers and I like the content you've got there. It's all based about raising awareness about Islam and geopolitical issues. And yeah, I'm a big fan, my brother.
No,
how long have you been doing it?
Probably coming close to 4 years, 3-4 years I reckon now, on TikTok specifically.
Right.
I did do Instagram for the last 10 years, but somebody goes to me, jump on TikTok and you'll kind of get a lot better views.
Yeah.
So I jumped on TikTok about 3-4 years ago, and alhamdulillah, the views have been good.
Yeah, TikTok's really, it's better really, isn't it?
Yeah, way better than Instagram.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Now, brother, from where you live in the UK, apparently not far from you, hasn't the Mahdi appeared wearing a beanie?
In Crewe.
Yeah, in Crewe, yeah.
The descendant of Simon Peter, he calls himself.
Oh my God, yeah. Are you thinking of investing in a beanie or should we give it a miss?
I've got plenty of beanies, man. I don't need to join him, man. I don't need to join none of his cult,
What do you think, brother? I mean, how do you see it?
These guys are just, they're funny guys. They're from the Ahmadi community.
Yeah.
They claim to be, I assume he claims to be the Mahdi of some sort.
Yeah.
He's got a bit of these, cultish kind of following in Crewe. I don't know, for some reason they wear a beanie and like these black jackets. In fact, similar to what I'm wearing now.
Yes.
And I don't know, they've got a bit of a following. They cause a bit of ruckus on social media and whatnot. But generally, I don't really think anybody pays much attention to them,
Yeah, same here. I think I've seen it. I've tried mocking some of his content, really. It's, I've seen him appearing and some of his justification. But yeah, that it is what it is. But brother, you talk a lot about Islamic issues, and mashallah, I think it's really good. You're raising a lot of awareness. But one thing, you get a lot of traction there. And do you think the belief in Islam over here is growing more and more in the UK?
See, it's an interesting kind of scenario we've got in the UK, because on one hand, Islam is like the number one topic in the media, in the news, even with the our fellow non-Muslims, Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage and co.
Yeah.
So it's the number one topic, which inadvertently has actually brought a lot of non-Muslims to Islam. So I come across a stat just a few days ago. 350,000 white reverts there are in the UK, which is almost 500,000, like crazy number that is.
That's a lot.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
350,000 white revert Muslims in the UK. And then at the same time, of course, you've got our own Muslim community, which I think we're gonna go into in a bit, being affected by, un-Islamic values, un-Islamic lifestyles. So it's like a bit of a weird one. On one hand, you've got a lot of traction towards Islam, towards the deen. And then on the other hand, our deen is constantly being attacked, and a large part of our community has, kind of is struggling with living in a non-Islamic society here in the UK. So you'll find best of both worlds, is what I'm trying to say.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think we've got lots of really good examples, and we've got some not so good examples as well. And you've got some people who they'll start off on one side and jump on the other side. They've made some mistakes in life and so on, so then eventually they'll jump along. But for someone who's your age, I'm a lot older, it wasn't always this way. It used to be a case of things were actually quite good. And then I think that it was the press. They hyped it up in order to justify a lot of these illegal wars. In particular, it was after September the 11th.
Yeah.
They really hyped up hatred against, and it was the press. And it was always a press who supported a certain country that we can't name. It was always their supporters, and they were hyping this up because they wanted certain nations to go out taking the enemies of the country we can't name. And that's exactly what happened over here. And it's been a concerted campaign that we've seen going on now it's come to 25 years or so now. And I'm hoping at some point, we've always been thinking it has to get better at some point. But then again, when we saw the country we can't name committing the act that we can't, the G side that we can't say, it got worse as a campaign that's always started. Now, you had certain interactions with I saw in your TikTok, immigration protesters, is that correct? Or EDL?
Oh, yes. So this was in Stoke-on-Trent. It was a couple of weeks before the United Kingdom march that Tommy Robinson held in London. And obviously you had the whole painting the flags and getting the Union Jacks up and this kind of stuff. So some of my fellow Stokies, they decided to, have a protest in the city centre. So I thought, you know what, let me just actually go, rather than, amongst the Muslim community, you get this idea that, they all hate us and they're really anti-Muslim and anti-immigration and they're just full of hatred and this kind of stuff. I thought, you know what, it's like around the corner from my house. Let me go and just investigate myself. Let me just do a bit of a video. So I went up there, and then for those of you who don't know, have a look at the video. I only managed to get 2 interviews. Nobody else was willing to speak to me.
I saw that.
Yeah. I mean, I should have actually put some of the behind the scenes kind of footage on. I might do later. No one was willing to talk to me. Everyone was covering their faces, whatnot. The interaction that I did get, one guy who was like a neutral protester, he seemed to be a bit clued on. The other person who I interviewed, he didn't have a clue. And to be honest, what you find is majority of these people are actually victims.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy for us to say, they don't like Muslims, they don't like Asians, etc. They're all racist, they're all Islamophobes, but they're victims as well. Like, they have been living an awful kind of life, and the people that they look up to have said, where you want to put this blame? It's on those Muslims, on those brown people, on those Asians. So of course they're going to have hatred. They honestly, a lot of them know no better. I should have actually panned the camera around behind me. There was a counter protest that was taking place, triple the numbers. So this anti-immigration, whatever kind of protest it was, you had about 20 odd people there, 17, 18 people. The counter protest, which I forgot to record, I don't know why, it had like double, triple the numbers. So it's interesting. I think personally for me, especially with big topics like this, it's good for us to be in those atmospheres, be in those spots, assuming that it's safe, and have a look and interact with people like firsthand rather than listening to social media.
Absolutely. I think you're right. I did exactly that, where I knew there was some of these protests were happening not far from me. And I thought, let's go down there and take a look. And one thing I'm aware of is that the funding comes from abroad. I mean, it's only going to come from one place, isn't it, really? So all the flags, they're all being paid for from abroad, right? And it's all from the country we can't name. And it's their supporters who are funding this. Because again, because of what's been going on over there, they need to they want to start more problems over here to divert attention away from over there. So all the funding has come from there. I thought I'd go out over there and talk to the people at least. And thought, you know what? Immigration is out of control. And some of these asylum claims, they are taking the piss. Yeah, they can't be that bad. Let's go out there, have a talk. Went over there. The people who were protesting, the flag protesters, they were the worst people you could ever imagine. Nutters, right? And they were, some of them, you could tell they had serious problems. Drink problems, drug problems, uneducated, uncouth, the kind of people who I would never, who I'd avoid dealing with in any way, shape or form, either as my tenants or doing business with or anything. I paid a lot for this house to be away from people like that, and they were just trashy people. But on the other hand, the fascist people, or the counter protesters, there were 3 times as many, 4 times as many. Really good people, and they were all there just to show the people, many of the Afghans in particular, who and it wasn't just Afghans staying in that hotel, but look, you are welcome. We don't all hate you. And that's the one thing I really admire about this country, where the people will come out and just to show, look, we're not all racist. And I think it gives us people like us hope as well to a certain degree. But I think I felt a bit unsafe at times. I felt like I'm a big Asian lad, and I was there filming, and I could see them. So there's one guy, he had some dogs, and he's about to set the dogs on me. And they were trying to interview me. And then I was saying, look, what's your position? Where do you stand? Oh, they were just being very, very cagey. And I was explaining to them, no, look, hang on a second. I'm a landlord. Locally, I own properties around there. And I made content about the same hotel up for sale. And someone's obviously got a contract with the government, must be doing well out of it. But there's never a problem with any of the migrants over there. We never even knew it was a migrant hotel. It's a very multicultural, diverse area, and business is booming around there for everyone. But then these people come out from nowhere. They're from the worst parts of Manchester, the most deprived parts. And they come over here and they are falling victim to this propaganda that we're seeing over here. Do you think it's going to get any better, or do you think it's going to get worse?
I think, unfortunately, we've kind of, globally, we've entered an era of populism.
Yeah.
You look at Trump, you look at Farage, you look at Modi, you look at, obviously, Netanyahu, you look at, even in Germany and France now, people have been walking into the Senate or Parliament with niqabs on, as a mockery. So I think we've entered an era of populism whereby the Western kind of world order is so fragile at the moment, economically, socially. People are coming along now, these politicians are coming along, promising the population a dream. And the reason why they're not living that dream is because of the other. That could be the Muslim, it could be the migrant, it could be, somebody of a different genetic makeup. And which way is the UK going to go exactly? Allahu Alam, I don't know exactly. But it seems to be heading towards a more polarized society that we're going to be living in. A lot more populism, a lot more scaremongering, fear-mongering. Like you mentioned, there are good people who will stick up against fascism, or racism, Islamophobia, whatnot. But I think times are going to probably get tougher. Generally you find a trend where if economically, financially, times get tough, then times also get, even tougher for migrants and Muslims and, black community, Asian community.
I think you're right. I think in particular we've had our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, and he's clearly a supporter of Zionism.
Mm-hmm.
And he allows a lot of this to happen because he knows, look, he's on their side. He's in their camp. And he's been quite vocal about this and said that I've got relatives in Israel. He's a Zionist and he's supporting Israel. And in order to counter, because the public is dead set against the actions that they've been doing over there in Israel, in order to counter that, he needs to let this kind of thing go on. These flag protests, hatred against Islam. So that's why I think to a certain degree, he's letting it grow. Now, at some point, do you see it getting worse over here? Do you see, for example, reform getting into power? And how do you see Europe going?
I definitely think reform are going to get a majority. If not a majority, they're going to get a shared majority. Reform have kind of replaced the Tories in a sense. They're the kind of further right of the far right, if you will, or of the right wing politics. Same in Europe. You've got Pegida in Germany. You've got that, what's that lady's name now? I forgot, in France.
Front National.
Yeah. I forgot the lady's name though herself. I think we are moving towards more of a right wing, more conservative, more Eurocentric kind of world. UK and Europe being, I think the number one problem that they've got, which unfortunately is always brushed under the carpet. Why is it that you've got Muslims and migrants in the UK in the first place, number one? And why is it that you've got an increase of Muslims and migrants coming over just in the last few years? And the very obvious elephant in the room kind of answer to that is your own foreign policy has caused these people to leave their own nations and they're coming here looking for a better life.
Yeah.
Do you see? If their own home, their own countries were in order, there'd be no need to enter Europe or the West in general, knowing that there is a campaign or a hatred or a propaganda against Islam. Why would anybody, it's like common sense, why would a man with a wife and kids leave his Muslim majority country, coming to the West knowing he's going to put his wife and kids in jeopardy in terms of, because of the anti-Islamic climate there? You wouldn't do that unless you really had to go. To go on a rubber dinghy in the first place, like people even online are saying, like, just think about the situation that you are leaving, whereby you have to put your children and your wife on a rubber dinghy with the danger, with the potential harm of drowning in the middle of the ocean. Like, you must be fleeing something far worse than that. And they are. People are fleeing places far worse than that. Just look at what's happening in Sudan, in Palestine, recently in Afghanistan, and in so many other places in the Muslim world. People are fleeing to a better life for a reason. It's because their own homes are unfit to live in because of the action of somebody else.
Yeah,
and this is something they don't want to talk about this.
And I think what's happened is a lot of the actions of Western nations have caused the economies to become problematic over there. And on top of that, so a lot of these are economic migrants where they can't live over there anymore. But on top of that, they've directly gone in there, destabilized Syria, destabilized Afghanistan. They've been 20 years they were in there. So now you've got Afghans coming over by rubber dinghies. And then they're being demonized, and they can't win. Either way, they can't win. Sometimes they come over here, and I can see how Afghanistan is now a hellhole. It's got serious problems, serious internal problems as well. That's because it's been invaded by everybody for the last 40 years or so. The Soviets tried it first, then the Americans tried it. And the Americans just bullied all the nations around there. Then we've just had Israel taking on Iran. But Iran was able to fight back. But my gut feeling is this, that reform, if the economy gets worse and worse, reform will be able to get, they might not have a full majority, but we might have a coalition government at some point, and they will be one of the players. That's my gut feeling over here. I think with much of Europe, they've got a very different culture to us. We may well see the Front National gaining power in France. With Germany, it's going to be a bit harder. But we may well see extreme right-wing parties gaining power in Europe. And at that stage, we may well be thankful we're out of Europe. So if this ever does happen, what do you see the future for the Muslims in this country? Do you think we're going to stay here and hack it out, or do you think it's better to be looking abroad?
It's like, it's interesting as to why we're even here in the first place. Like, if you look at the Muslim migration into the UK specifically India, Pakistan region, Bangladesh as well. Like, the idea was, we're going to come over here, we're going to make some money, we're going to send a bit of money back home, or we're going to make a bit of a livelihood for ourselves. It was never with the intention of resettling here generation upon generation later to the point where you have now permanent Muslim residents within the UK. In fact, as far as I'm aware, in terms of all Islamic history, this is one of those eras where you've had sizable Muslim populations who are living outside of their homeland. It's never really happened before.
You're right.
And the reason as to why that is because you've never really had a situation like the world where we're living in today, whereby home is unlivable for many reasons, which we'll probably get into, and the new home that you call, or the place that you migrate to, whatever you want to call it, is also becoming unlivable. So, what is the situation going to be? Personally, for me, in an ideal world, you would want Muslims to naturally move back to a Muslim majority nation. You would want Muslims generally to live in Muslim Islamic societies. The question then becomes, well, where in 2025, turning into 2026, where do you want Muslims to go? If here is unlivable, what about abroad? Where exactly is it that you go? And I think this is the situation that we find ourselves in today.
So look, as a young man, where do you see, what do you see? Do you see yourself living for the rest of your life in this country, or are you looking at options abroad?
Me personally, and loads of people who I know now, especially this generation, next generation, we do want to move out. We want to move to a society, to a nation that is in line with our own beliefs and values. Any community wants that. All communities want to live in a place where it is they can live and abide by their own beliefs, their own values, their own principles.
Somewhere you're not persecuted.
Somewhere where you can be an open Muslim.
Absolutely.
Somewhere where our children are not going to be brainwashed into, being taught certain things. Somewhere where even ourselves, we're not going to be polluted or affected as much by the society that we live,
Okay.
What surrounds us.
So just a quick point over here. Our children will not be brainwashed. I was talking with someone yesterday who's a committed Christian, and he was saying to me that he really admires Muslims because he said that the only people standing up to the whole transgender over here, where he feels like his kids are being taught certain things at school, and he's too afraid to say this is not okay. He's too afraid to say it, but he says it's the Muslims who are saying it.
Yeah.
And I'm just keeping quiet and thinking, thank God the Muslims are saying it. And he was saying, look, I mean, it was a very, very straight up conversation. We were talking about these things. He was saying, look, a lot of white children are being chemically castrated by this. And he says the white people are the victims. The only people saying anything are the Muslims. So I totally agree with your brainwashing over here. And it's a point of concern, isn't it?
It's a huge point of concern. I mean, one is the whole transgenderism and this kind of stuff. Because we've been brought up and raised within the UK, there are certain ideas, customs that we've kind of become oblivious to. Do you see? Even like, for example, a few things like financially how we conduct ourselves, interaction between men and women, our dress code, the language that we use. This is all we become completely desensitized to a lot of this kind of stuff. Whereas if you had Muslims now is a different kind of story, but if you had a generally practicing Muslim from somewhere in the Muslim world who would come over here, they'd have a heart attack thinking like, what kind of jungle am I living in? Yeah, fair enough, make a bit of money and whatnot, but I need to get back out of here. This is not somewhere where I would want to willingly bring my wife and children for a better life. And by better life, I think a lot of people, they look at it from a financial, economic point of view. But what about from a social point of view, from a psychological point of view?
That's a very good point, that is, because when a lot of people, I would say, many of my followers and viewers over here right now are going to be Muslims or people of colour or even white people who are looking at their options of moving. And one of the main things they need some sort of financial security. Where can I go and earn some money? I can't go somewhere and be broke over there. You've got to be able to earn some money over there. There's got to be the chances of a career, of running a business, or something or another like that. There has to be some sort of a justice system in place. It has to be somewhere where you're treated fairly. That's the main strength of this country, I would say. You're treated fairly. There's a system of justice. You can make money over here. But what other options would you be looking at? Or do you think people of your generation are looking at to move away to emigrate to?
You've got a lot of, by the way, I don't personally agree with this, but you've got a lot of Muslims who are looking towards the Gulf.
Yeah.
Qatar, UAE, in many places, Saudi, Oman, Bahrain, because they're living in what they deem to be a Muslim majority country. Someone who I know, he just went to Dubai for a little holiday.
Yeah.
And he was saying like, bro, we didn't even see any locals. Like, it felt like we were in Europe. It felt like we were in, LA or somewhere in Europe, or, there's a white tourists all over the place, I know a lot of people are moving to Dubai, Muslims, because they want to live in a Muslim country, but still have that flexibility with money, with, certain rights and this kind of stuff. But again, for me, it's like, what is the difference between the UAE and the nation who we cannot name, and some certain other parts in Europe? From a value, from a system, from a principle point of view, what's the difference? Fair enough, you can pray.
Yeah.
That's probably about it in terms of dress code. Yeah, you can pray and you can have halal meat. But as Muslims, we've got our perspective got to be a lot bigger than that.
Yeah.
Like, I think one of the issues that we have today, like in 2025, and this has been the case, for almost the last century now, is that because there is no place on earth where Islam has been implemented at the political, ideological, intellectual level, you've got failed states in the Muslim world. Either they're completely failed states, corrupt states, or they're nations who are trying to aspire to be like the West.
Yeah.
Or you have the West.
Yes.
Do you see? And so those 2 or 3 options that you've got is a very bizarre situation that the Ummah finds itself in.
I think absolutely right. I think we have to understand here, it wasn't always this way. Mm-hmm. The Muslim world was fairly unified at one point. We never saw mass migration from the Muslim world to the Western nations because it wasn't needed. People were rich in the Muslim world. We used to have a system of Islam in place, and that all fell apart by force. And I don't want to get any stick for this, but Islam used to be much more than the religion that it is now. It was a whole system. Mm-hmm. And it was stopped by force in, I think it was 1914. After, was it 1914, 1918?
24.
Sorry, where the fall of the Khilafah happened, where the Turks lost in the First World War. And the Khilafah system just broke apart. And that's where I think all the problems started. I think even prior to that certain degree, where we are accused of trying to take over in this country now. People like me and you, people of Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian descent. We're accused. You come here, you take our jobs, and you're trying to take over. Yeah. We welcomed you in. Yeah, that's exactly what happened in India. We were the richest people on the planet. We were a very advanced society. It's just back in India. The British people turned up. We welcomed them in with open arms. You want to make some money? No problem. We get it. It'll be good for the system. They were welcomed in with open arms. And we were taken over by a company, the East India British Company, right? So they came over and slowly but surely, they took over. Before you knew it, so they were welcomed in. It was not any problems. There were generation upon generation of people of English descent who were born over there. Still to this day, there are people high up in the military, you'll find out they were born in Lahore. That generation is dying out now. But they were welcomed in. They stayed for generations. They made huge amounts of money, but they took over. And they took over by force in the worst possible way. The snidest possible tactics were used against the Indian subcontinent, and it was taken over. Then they milked it dry for everything they could do. The whole point of Gandhi when he was doing his protest march and so on, it was against the system they had in place where he could see it was cheaper for them to ship over products from India, old India, to the UK, make something, ship it back again to India and sell it to the Indians, rather than doing it in India. And this is the system he was protesting against. Make it fair at least. And then, if you look at the opium wars they forced China to get hooked on opium so they could make money out of it. Right? The worst crimes you can think of were committed, in particular, in a lot of wealth was stolen from the Indian subcontinent. And then we fought in the wars for them. Then they gave us all British passports. Right? Yeah. That's where the problem started. Yeah, I think, so we've seen the fragmentation of the Muslim countries used to be a lot more unified. And have you read the speech by, I think, was it George Lloyd in Parliament about when the Khilafah was broken?
I think so, you have to remind me.
You have to read this speech. Anybody out there, read the speech about the former British Prime Minister, George Lloyd. And he was there after they defeated Turkey, saying, we've done it. We've finally done it. This system has held us back for centuries. These Muslims have been holding us back from access to the rest of the world for centuries. We've finally done it. We've beaten them. We need to keep them fragmented, away from their religion. Make sure this never happens again. It's a speech to be, you've got to read it. But so now we're left in a situation where we've been living over here in the West. We're all looking for new options. And I think you're right in what you're saying about a lot of the Gulf countries. Some of them have some good points, but I've got a lot of friends who have been to Dubai. They're saying it's not what it used to be. Finance-wise, some of them were saying they went there and it's just full of Indians.
Yeah.
You don't want to move somewhere nice and, no offense to Indians, but, these are proper Indians, slumdog millionaire type Indians, from Mumbai and stuff like that, yeah, and they weren't impressed. And many people are looking at, what do you think of Saudi Arabia as an option, or Oman? What do you think of their potential to move to?
Look, I think it depends what you want. What do you want from moving? If you want general security, if you don't want your women folk and children to be harassed on the streets by some yobbo with a pint of whatever, if you want to pray, if you want to hear the adhan, if you want to wear a jubba, if you want to eat halal meat, fine. Yeah, most of these countries will tick the box. But that comes with a price, and that price is you have to keep your mouth shut.
Yep.
You are not allowed to speak from a political point of view, foreign affairs point of view. If you do wish to speak, it's at your own risk. There are risk factors involved. There are dangers involved.
We don't have the freedom we have over here in the West, do we?
That's one. But also, there's a reason. I say that a big part for that is because the real change is going to come from the Muslim world. Do you see? Whatever genuine Islamic change you're looking to implement is going to have to come from the Muslim world. So they're going to be the first, I'm talking about the people on their thrones, they're going to be the first ones to rebuttal and go against any kind of change that takes place, because they're profiteering from this change. They're profiteering from the status quo right now. They're going to be the biggest losers if genuine change were to ever occur. And we saw a glimpse of that when Sheikh Hasina, she was kind of, lifted out of Bangladesh. She was, arguably one of the most influential, rich, powerful people in the country. But because of the idea of her being a corrupt tyrant, witch, many different other words you can use, which I'm not going to mention here, they kicked her out.
She was a puppet.
She was a puppet.
She was a puppet of India.
And she fled to India.
Yeah, that's it. She was a puppet of India for so many years. And the Indians aren't as strong as the Western nations, obviously, nowhere near as good. And their propaganda isn't anywhere near as good. But they managed to keep her in power for a long time.
Yeah.
But how do you see the Ummah going now? I mean, from your perspective, are we just going to fragment, or do you think there's going to be, what's the solution over here?
I think there are a few things that we've seen over the last few years now which give a lot of hope, give a lot of motivation. I think first and foremost, we have seen, and I use this word loosely, we have seen a re-Islamification of the Muslim world.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? If you look, mainly since World War II, in fact, even since the First World War, but mainly since World War II, you had this Muslim Ummah in all parts of the Muslim world, Egypt and Syria and Pakistan, Bangladesh, even, in the Gulf and Tunisia. You had the Muslim world experiment with many, many different ways of life, many different ideologies.
Such as communism, socialism, Western type.
Yeah, you had Arab Baathism.
Yes.
You even tried Syria and Egypt, a lot of people don't know, were one country.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've tried monarchies, you tried Islamic democracy, Islamic republicanism, you've tried Emirates, tried sultanates, blah, 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 blah. And they've all fell flat on the face.
Yeah.
They've all failed for various different reasons.
You're right, yeah.
They've all failed. So one thing that this has done actually, it's a blessing in disguise, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works in ways that we just can never comprehend. Like the fact that the Ummah went on these journeys and each one failed actually pushed the Ummah closer to its inevitable result, which is going to be, well, hang on a minute, there's an elephant in the room. You guys are Muslim. You have a revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, look back towards that. And what you have found generally, especially since the Arab Spring, is more and more Muslims calling for Islam. Now, I use that loosely because
I agree,
are they very absolutely clear and pure about what an Islamic alternative looks like? Not necessarily.
Yeah.
But are their sentiments going in the right place? Definitely. To the point where you've had our own secular politicians have had to even use the Islamic card.
Yes.
They've had to use an Islamic kind of language just to get votes. You had Al-Nahda party in Tunisia, they had to use some kind of Islamic thingy. They said we were going to implement Sharia and Islam was going to be the state religion in Tunisia, and then as soon as they came into power, they kind of let go of that. In Egypt, you
Typical.
have Muhammad Morsi, Muslim Brotherhood. He came with a certain promise. In Pakistan, you had Imran Khan, Riyasat Medina. Like, you have to play this kind of game now. Look at Syria. Even Syria, the large parts of the revolution in Syria were very Islamic. The sentiment was very Islamic. So I think the Ummah is working towards, or is moving towards, this re-Islamification. But I think number two, which is kind of goes hand in hand, Ummah's looking for change.
Yes.
It's looking for big change. We've seen this with Afghanistan removing the US, Syria removing Bashar, Bangladesh removing Sheikh Hasina. Ummah's looking for change. We saw it in the Arab Spring. These tyrants who had held onto their thrones for 20, 30, 40 years, some of them, 38 years, I think one of them was in power, removed. And that to the Ummah was like, oh my God, like, we've literally done the unthinkable. How have we moved these tyrants who we thought they're going to be there forever. So putting these two things hand in hand, the Ummah is becoming or moving closer to her Islam, and the Ummah is looking for change. Now the question is, okay, how do we actually get the Ummah towards that?
Yeah. So go on. How do you see it happening? For your 2 cents.
So I think anything that we do in terms of political activity, political change, the implementation of Islam, like we have a blueprint. And that blueprint, and I know it's cliche, but it's important that we go into the detail. Everybody says, oh, Quran Sunnah, brother, Quran Sunnah. Every Muslim will say, you want solution to life? Quran and Sunnah. You want to, fix this issue? Quran and Sunnah. Okay, brilliant. Let's actually now delve into what does the Quran, and more specifically the Sunnah, the life of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did they implement change? How did they become the political authority in Medina? Because when I was a kid growing up, especially, you hear of all the struggles and stories of Mecca, Sahaba being persecuted, our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam being ridiculed and mocked and insulted, and you hear all these kind of stories about the patience and the bravery and keeping motivated. And then you turn the next page and the Muslims have just won Battle of Badr, and you think, well, hang on, where's the jump? How can you go from a persecuted, weak minority in Mecca to now challenging those very same people who were persecuting you in a different land altogether? And the idea was the way in which our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam managed to create this change within twofold. One is you have to build a public opinion for people who agree to somewhat with this change that you're offering, or if they don't agree, that there's no threat of them rebelling. And number two, you have to, absolutely key, that you convince the people of power, the movers and shakers in society, toward the system, because they are going to be the ones who implement the system. Do you see? Again, if we go into Seerah, the Prophet ﷺ, he tried with over 40 different tribes, rejection after rejection after rejection, until it was one tribe, the people of Medina. Later on they became known as the people of Medina, the Ansar. They were the ones who actually accepted the message of the Prophet ﷺ. They said, you know what, it's interesting actually, I know it's a bit of a side note, I don't want to go on for too long. Before they were looking for the Prophet ﷺ, they had something called the Bu'ath Wars, which was a war between their tribes, which actually ended their political leadership. Many of their political nobles and chiefs were killed in the Bu'ath Wars, to a point where it resulted in what we call a political vacuum. They were searching for leadership. They were searching for authority. So with the 40 different tribes that the Prophet ﷺ went and visited, they were not one of them. They actually visited the Prophet ﷺ. They're the only tribe to go to the Prophet ﷺ rather than he go to them. And they went to him and they said, this is the man who the Jews threatened us with, because the Jews also believed in the coming of a prophet. They said, this is the man who the Jews threatened us with. Maybe through him our tribes can be united and he can become our leader. And so that is exactly what happened. If you try and superimpose that now to today, we're at a situation where there has to be a dawah, there has to be a call that's publicly that's creating a public opinion within the ummah that wants to live by Islam, and at the same time is targeting the elites, the movers and shakers, and very specifically in the Muslim world is targeting the army. Yeah. It's targeting the general, the brigadiers, the majors, because they are the ones, whether you like it or not, who are going to have to bring
spot on. I fully agree. Right. So in particular, I think we're talking about the Pakistani generals there as well, aren't we, really? Yeah. And the Bangladeshi generals, yeah, and whoever's in charge in Afghanistan as well. I think they're the main players over here. But just to go back 100 years, right, before Pakistan was created, there was a Caliphate movement in Pakistan. Sorry, in New Delhi. And they'd seen the Caliphate fall in Turkey. And they were all distraught by this. They were, hang on a second, the system of Islam has fallen. It's not just any old country. The system of Islam has fallen. Right? And we need to reimpose this. We've got to restart this in India. We want to partition. We want a new Muslim country to be formed over here. And we want to restart the Khilafah. That was the whole point. right? Muhammad Ali Jinnah, though, he was secular,
Yeah.
right? He did a lot of good. He got his way. And all the people who were, they were actually big allies of, they were all allies with Gandhi. And it came very close to coming back into existence there. But it didn't happen. Ultimately, what I think is, there's a chance that it could happen again in either Pakistan or Bangladesh. What are your thoughts about this?
I think wherever it needs to be implemented, it has to be implemented. Number one, any nation that is capable, yeah, it's all good and well that you can implement the Khilafah in Brunei, yeah, but it's an absolute spec. It's not powerful enough.
Yeah.
Because remember, if we're talking about a genuine Khilafah here, the Khilafah that the European, the British and French specifically were so anti, so against, the European kind of political class, they actually understand what Islam is better than a lot of people. They understand Islam from a socio-economic, ideological, political point of view. So they're not just going to allow the Khilafah to be implemented and say, yeah, you know what, we'll help you and fund you and pat you on the back. No, when the Khilafah is established, they're going to be, and the West in general, are going to be the first ones who try to weaken it, try to stop its expansion. I'd say, just thinking out loud in terms of nations that are powerful enough to implement the Khilafah, like you mentioned, Pakistan and Bangladesh, I'd put Egypt in there, I'd put Turkey in there.
Absolutely.
Other nations, and again, we tend to look at this through the lenses of nation state. You can have two nations, for example, who, if they were to implement Islam at the same time, if there was some kind of communication between the two, between the elites of the two, you could even have that. You know, just thinking out as an example, I don't know, like Syria and Iraq, or Syria and Jordan, or something like that.
Malaysia, Indonesia.
Yeah, exactly, Malaysia, Indonesia. But generally, I'd say Pakistan, Bangladesh, Turkey, Egypt. Are there sizable Muslim population within these nations who have a strong sentiment to Islam? Definitely in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Egypt.
Absolutely.
Even in Turkey to a certain degree.
Oh yeah. They haven't forgotten.
No, they have not.
They have not forgotten at all. Yeah, and this is why they so heavily support Pakistan, because they know Pakistan always used to help. Well, the Muslims of India used to help them a lot, because they believed in the whole Khilafah system, right? And that was their leaders. Yeah. That's how they saw it. You know, they are they get to define certain things within our faith, right? They had a leadership of Islam, but what I think is the one place. Just reading into geopolitics, it's always events. When it comes to geopolitics, events happen and these things occur. And I've always thought that if the Khilafah was to come back in, for example, Bangladesh, Pakistan would have to join. No ifs, no buts. It would have to join. Bangladesh used to be part of Pakistan. Because of Pakistan's own stupidity, it broke away. Because of Pakistan's stupidity. If Pakistan had been a more of an Islamic nation, Bangladesh still to this very day would have been part of Pakistan. So if the Khilafah was to come back, for example, in Bangladesh, the Pakistanis would have no option but to rejoin. Okay? So if the Pakistan was to join, and Pakistan combined with Bangladesh, very powerful force. But on top of that, if Afghanistan was to join in then, now they're even more powerful than before. Then if you had a lot of sympathy coming in from Turkey, who thought, hang on a second, now's a good chance for us to, because it's all about markets, it's all about economy, geopolitics, power. This is what really comes into it, right? So if someone's powerful enough and picks up the banner of Islam, says, right, that's it, I'm bringing in the Khilafah, right? And other people will stand up as well, right? If you're a loser, nobody wants to be with you. If you're a winner, other people will stand up alongside of you. And if nations like Indonesia, Malaysia stood up with any new sort of entity that was formed, that's where I think it's going to come from. So we need to raise awareness of this. That what it comes back to is this as well. The Khilafah fell over 100 years ago. You can't wish it back into existence, just how it was over then. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. You've got to look at a practical way of doing this. How can we really do this? And the real way of doing this is look at the United Kingdom. They're more of an Islamic nation than most Islamic nations. If you really think about it, right? They free healthcare, right? They there's a social system in place. It's just some of its foreign policies is obviously it is what it is, yeah. But so you'd have to have a modern day version of the Khilafah. That's what you'd have to have, and it'd have to work. It'd have to be viable. Have to be strong. You'd have to have a lot of money and a lot of internal and external support.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? So in terms of like modern day Khilafah and this kind of stuff, so generally the way we think of it is Islam has rules.
Yeah.
And what are the what are the purpose of those rules? They are to regulate human problems. If you want to if we just keep it simple like that, Islamic ruling, they regulate human problems. Human problems to do with what they eat, how they get married, financial, business transactions, ownership laws, what they wear, how they kind of communicate with one another, the rights that a wife has over a husband and vice versa, son has over his parents and vice versa. So all the rules in Islam generally, they are there to fix and regulate the human instinct, the nature of a human being. Now the nature of the human being has remained the same since the time of Adam alayhi salam. The human being still eats, drinks, sleeps. The human being still has an instinct for survival, for work, for procreation, has a social instinct, has a worship instinct, etc. The nature of the human being has remained the same since the time of Adam alayhi salam, albeit that the means, the styles, the designs, the technology that the human being uses to satisfy these needs, to satisfy this nature has changed. Yeah. So just like before, people would have to go out to hunt fresh meat or grow their crops in the farm and this kind of stuff. Today we can, buy, we can get like a Uber Eats or Just Eat or whatever it is. You can get it delivered to your house within 10 minutes.
Really helps.
Yeah, it does help. But you're still satisfying the same human nature since the time of Adam alayhi salam. Now, when it comes to this, the idea of a khilafah in the modern world, well, actually, the khilafah from 100 years ago, the khilafah from 1,000 years ago, is still, and the khilafah today is still going to be satisfying that same nature of a human being, albeit in a different technological way, different advancements, different sciences, and that's completely fine. I think personally, the khilafah, if re-established, re-implemented today, would be an absolutely powerhouse.
I think you're right.
To match with. Honestly, like the way that, and not only that, for argument's sake, if Khilafah was established 30 years ago, 1990, 1995, one of the heights of the US power, might have been a different ballgame. Might have been a different situation altogether. But in this moment of time, where all we can see is the decline of the West, the rise of the East or the Far East, the world going from a unipolar to a multipolar kind of order, the Khilafah could spring up today and absolutely, make itself a force to be reckoned with. And when I say that, I'm talking not only from a political point of view, a military point of view, an economic point of view, a point of view that gives an alternative to the world.
I think absolutely right. Yeah.
We think and we know, and it is true, Muslims are looking for a change, for an alternative. Non-Muslims are looking for an alternative.
Yes.
Non-Muslims are looking for non-Muslims in the West, in the East, wherever they are also arguably as oppressed as Muslims are.
Absolutely.
And the problem is, unfortunately for them, they don't have an alternative.
Okay, so I've always thought that, this is just my opinion. Yeah. I could be wrong here, yeah? I've always thought in order for the Khilafah system to work, yeah, if you start off with Bangladesh, for me is a key one, because if it happens in Bangladesh, Pakistan has to join, and it's not going to care what anyone says. It's got nukes. They will not care. They won't listen to anyone. America, China, they're joining. They don't care. They'll say, fine, yeah, all the generals, Field Marshal, he'll turn around and say, no problem, absolutely no problem, because then it's a massive turnaround for Pakistan. It's a big win, right? Then on top of that, they could get Afghanistan involved, right? But then on top of that, all of the Central Asian states. But it's got to be economically viable. It's got to be the kind of place where, and this is quite important, where it's got to be free from oppression, free from tyranny. Those two words are important. Free from oppression, free from tyranny. And it's got to be the kind of place where people like me and you and other Westerners who are not Muslims want to travel to. Go there, live, have a good life. You know, there's a lot of people in the West in particular who want to have the old-fashioned values back,
Yeah.
but they feel they can't do it over here. So that's why I think we need to have that kind of system in place over there. I think the trick might be just to keep it practical and workable.
Yeah.
You start off with the Western style system that you know works, then you Islamify, you know, put more and more Islam into it, right? You work from it like that, right? You bring in the Sharia. You know, the foreign policy has to be a certain way. No interest. You can't have interest. And that's one of the main things. And there's got to be freedom from oppression, tyranny. That's what I think. It's just keep it sweet, keep it simple.
Yeah. So I have the opposite view.
Okay.
On the other end of the spectrum,
Okay.
which is, and this, you got a cramp. This idea of gradually implementing the Sharia, it actually leads to more harm
Right.
than we think. And the reason why I say that is because the nature of Islam, the nature of the Islamic system is the different facets of the system go hand in hand. To implement one portion of Islam whilst at the same time implementing in a different facet of the system, implementing something that is un-Islamic, it actually leads to more friction. It leads to a topsy-turvy kind of system. For example, and you can actually see this in parts of Iran, parts of Pakistan, Saudi even, which is that you have certain social elements which are meant to be, at least from a dress code point of view, maybe from an interaction point of view, they're meant to be Islamic. But then at the same time, you're bringing in things which are going against that. For example, why is there across the Muslim world, why are there certain laws? I think Indonesia for marriage is about 18, yeah, or 19 even. Yeah. Now, very quickly, what you find is this is a law based on an arbitrary number that's causing more problems, because we know very, very clearly that majority, if not all, human beings, they get to sexual maturity well before 19. Yeah, they are the human body is able to procreate at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17. Why you put the age up to 19? What you've done is you've tried to regulate the natural sexual instinct that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in a human being, but you're trying to shut that down. It doesn't work like that. How is it that we can implement parts of Islam and parts of non-Islam? It will lead to fragmentation of society. I have the opposite view that actually the system of Islam has to be implemented radically. And when I say that, I don't mean from a crazy point of view. When I say radically means comprehensively from get-go, from day one. Do you see? This is how our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam implemented Islam in Medina.
Okay.
This is how it can be implemented today. Now again, people think that, oh my God, like, what is that going to look like? It's going to be too difficult. Are we in a position where we can, radically implement the system of Islam in the nation that we've got today? It's going to cause too many problems. I have a few answers to this. Number one, if it was the case that you mentioned Pakistan, we'll take Pakistan as an example. If it was the case that Pakistan was this multi-trillion-dollar economy,
Exactly, money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People were living like amazingly lavishly, and there was no crime and no corruption and blah 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 blah. And then you're trying to introduce a system that's going to turn that all upside down. Then we can have that discussion.
Yeah.
But if you look at the situation for the average, I think 50-60% of the Pakistani population is on the verge of or within poverty.
Exactly. Up to
insane.
Yes.
Statistic for a nation of 220, 230 million. Yeah. What is going to be the change for them? By and large, they're going to be the benefiters. In fact, everybody will be a benefiter for the implementation of the Islamic system, barring the super wealthy and super elite from a financial point of view.
Yeah.
You might not be able to carry on, you will not be able to carry on nurturing and squeezing out the rupees and pennies and whatever it is from the average person. You're not going to be able to do that anymore, because Islam implements a system of justice. If you are hiring somebody, if you're hiring a maid or a driver or a security guard for your house, you have to pay them a livable amount of money. Do you see? Now that doesn't mean that we're like a socialist communist kind of economy where everybody gets equal pay and this kind of stuff. Not at all. Yeah, but there is an element of justice, of fairness there, that the judges, that the governors of the Khilafah, that they will decide. Do you see? But generally, if you want, and remember, we're coming along as an alternative. If you look generally at any major change on earth has been radical.
Yeah.
If you look at the Bolsheviks, that when they came into power, Soviet Union, they were an absolutely radical people, i.e. they did not believe in the tenets of capitalism. They completely rejected it. From day one, they implemented the system that they believed in. Yeah. If you look at even those nations who revolted against the monarchy, the French Revolution, if you look at the Americans when they revolted against the British, they had an idea, they jotted that down. This is what we're going to live our future by from today.
Right.
And we're going to implement that as much as we can. And exactly the same, when our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam entered Medina, he wrote what's called the Charter of Medina. Some call it the Constitution of Medina. These are the laws. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is how it's going to be from today. Why? Why are you able to do that? Because like we mentioned before, you've managed to convince the people who have authority over that region that I'm the leader that you've put your trust in. So trust me, I'm coming with a message, I'm coming with a blueprint. You have people today in the Muslim world who have a blueprint, who have a constitution, a draft constitution, who are talking, who are giving dawah to the public, and at the same time who are giving dawah to the army, the judges, the elite.
Absolutely. Now, I think this is why I keep saying Bangladesh is so important here. Because if Bangladesh was able to pull off something like this, they've got the intellectual capacity to pull it off.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to, right? And if they do that, they've got the money as well. It's just power. Well, do they have the power? Well, Pakistan's got the power.
Yeah.
It always was the case of the Indians of Muslims. They were a powerhouse, and the intellectual stronghold came from that side, right? The muscle powerhouse came from the others, Uzla, Pakistan. Yeah, that's what no one could mess with them. And this is what I think. It's all about circumstances and events. So, if, for example, Bangladesh was to pull off something like this, and the Afghans were to turn around and say, "Right, we're joining," Pakistan would have no option. I don't care how radical it is. We don't care how revolutionary it is. We're joining. Yeah. We're joining. Anyone messes with you, we're going to do X, Y, and Z to them. They would be highly motivated at that stage, and this is really what it comes down to, And then even if you've got some generals who are fairly secular, they'll be there saying, "We don't care. No, forget that. We're going Islam now. This is our route. This is our route. Let's see if we can get the Turks in play. Let's see if we can get Indonesia in play, Malaysia in play. Who else is going to join us?"
Yeah.
And at that stage, to start thinking about Anglo-Saxon, now this is a massive geopolitical change. You've gone from being, a third world country. Pakistan's already becoming a major regional power. You've gone from that stage. You're getting closer to being a world power then. And then before you know it, other nations will be joining. A lot of the Central Asian states, they could be joining. Iran has its own issues, obviously. They're obviously different ballgame. But if you've got Pakistan, Bangladesh, Indonesia, Malaysia, and you've got Turkey looking to join, and that's a world power.
Yeah, 100%. I think one major thing for the Muslim world right now is what you've just mentioned, like who's going to throw the first punch?
Yeah, see.
Do you see?
Who goes first?
It's like a street fight.
Yeah.
A lot of 20 v 20, but there's that anxiousness.
Exactly. Who goes first?
Exactly. Once that first punch is thrown, analogically speaking, then everybody's going to join. I think for the Muslim world especially, the people, the majority of people in Pakistan who have been living this difficult life, they look over at Bangladesh, they'll say, hang on a minute, if they can do it, if they're able to live by the values and principles that they believe in, same book, same ideology, same deen, same Islam, same Lord who we worship, what's stopping us? Like, I personally, I believe that the public opinion within not only Pakistan but many parts of the Muslim world will be so strong for their leadership, and their leadership will either have to capitulate or give in. I think, like you mentioned, you will always have your secular generals, your liberal kind of elite, and this kind of stuff. It's interesting as well, though. They will very quickly fall in line.
Yes.
And fall in line, what I mean, if you look at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he, many years after taking power in Medina, when they were able to conquer Mecca, from where they were born, from the birthplace, from the start of the messengership, when they conquered Mecca, the two biggest previous enemies of Islam, Abu Sufyan and Suhail bin Amr, they accepted Islam. They became Muslim. Not only did they become Muslim, imagine like these were the two people who were, spreading the propaganda. They went at war with the Muslim. They insulted our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to his face. These were then the very two people. They came round to Islam, and not only did they come round to Islam, they were the reason as to why Islam reached such mighty heights and mighty lengths. Suhail bin Amr, he was the one who stopped the apostasy and rebellion of Mecca. Abu Sufyan, we know he was the one whose son became, one of the great khulafa, one of the great governors in Asham, in Syria. So I personally believe that when the direction is moving towards this kind of call, you'll have people who, even though they may not be all for it, even though they may hate it, even they'll fall in line. You've never really had a system where everybody believes in the system. No, you're always going to get people who are scheming. You're going to have people who are plotting. You're going to have people who are looking to say, okay, which way does it go? If it goes this way, I'm with them. If it goes that way, I'm
absolutely.
with them.
I think you're right.
It's there for the money. It's there for comfortability.
I think what could happen here is we could see something happen in that part of the world, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and then if they were to pull that off, you'd see everybody, a lot of people, especially now. Here's the thing to bear in mind: the reason why the Muslims fell, the reason why the Khilafah came to the end, was purely because of Western military supremacy and money. Just those two issues. That's it, right? Now, the Western military tech is now no longer the main leader. It's not. It's fading fast. Mm-hmm. The Europeans have already fallen behind. The Chinese are overtaking everybody. It's now between the Chinese and the Americans. The Chinese are going to win this one, right? But then you've got the Turks coming into play as well. Even they are a very strong military power.
Yeah.
Even Russia would think twice about messing with Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
It's that powerful. A combination of Turkey, Poland, and Ukraine would cause Russia. You basically it'd be the end of Russia. They'd have to go nuclear. They're getting beaten, right? So this is what it comes down to. Things are changing now. So if Pakistan has apparently more oil than Iraq in the ocean, massive reserves over there, trillions. It's already got trillions in gold. It takes money, to pull this off, right? Money, and you need friends from far and away. And then if you've got people like us who are all traveling back to Pakistan, and it'd be game changer. Pakistan would no longer, Bangladesh would stop being the same country it is now.
Yeah.
Completely transform.
I think what's interesting as well, like in terms of money, it's funny that if you look at Islamic history, we've never had an issue with money.
Yeah.
There's never ever been an issue with poverty, with lack of infrastructure, with lack of distribution of wealth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this ummah so much wealth, so much resource. Couple that with a system that is able to utilize that resource correctly, that is able to distribute that wealth correctly. We've always had the centerpieces of wealth in the world. Look at Andalus in Spain, one of the richest. Look at Mughal India, one of the richest. Look at Asham, one of the richest nations on earth we're talking about, in the whole of the world. And then you go to sub-Saharan Africa, Mansa Musa, Mali, meant to be like the richest human being ever to exist. Ummah's never ever had a problem with wealth, generally. I don't think our issue is going to be with making money, with generating money in the Khilafah to come. I think our major issue is going to be with, like you mentioned, geopolitically. How do we navigate this geopolitical kind of world that we're living in now? Because you're going to have a lot of opportunities for annexation and expansion. What I mean by that is by the demand of their own populations. Well, I do not mean that Pakistan is going to go to a war with Afghanistan. The opposite, I think, is true. You're going to have the Afghanistan saying, like, we want to be a joint nation. We don't want to join with Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't want to join with Afghanistan. We want to be under the umbrella of Islam.
This is it. This is the only way forward here.
Yeah.
That border isn't real.
Yeah.
It's a two-way thing. Many Afghans seem to say, that we got all this land. No, hang on a second. I say to them, that's my land as well.
Yeah.
That's an artificial border. But then again, it's, for me, the demand also seems to come, hang on a second, what about Kashmir?
Yeah.
That has to be sorted out first of all as well. That has to be liberated. That's a fake border being imposed by the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, there should be a land route from Pakistan going over to Bangladesh.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of millions of Muslims over there. They can't be forgotten. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I think at some point or another, the whole crucial point over here becomes the Indian subcontinent. Soon as, I think, if an event will occur, such as Pakistan going to war with India, right? It's going to be make or break. If Pakistan liberates Kashmir, shows its dominance over India, and India begins to fall apart or something, then that's it. You could see a system of Islam arising from Pakistan. You'd have the confidence then, you'd have the power then to turn around, because at the moment they've got the Indians breathing down their neck at every single step.
Yeah.
So
I think it's almost a catch-22 for Pakistan as well. Personally, I don't, unless India are true to the breaking of the water treaty and they genuinely start diverting water.
Oh, they've broken it.
They've broken it, yeah.
Yeah.
When they start building these dams and diverting the water and this kind of stuff, it's going to put Pakistan in a position now where either you're going to continue being subservient for the sake of the US, that you turn a blind eye to what India is doing, at the detriment of your own, of your own system.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, brother, I've been following this in detail.
Yeah.
Right? I've been following this for the last 25 years. In detail, the strength of the Pakistani military. Exactly what are they doing? Yeah. And it's been clear they're trying to get themselves in a position to take on the Indians. In order for you to be a smaller nation like Pakistan to take on India, that's a big ask. Mm-hmm. That's a massive ask. Right? It's not possible. Right? But circumstances come into play. You got the Chinese now. Yeah. Their military tech is unbeatable now. Yeah. In the last time they had a confrontation, Pakistan dusted India.
100%.
They did really well. Now, if they go for, they're going to have to go and liberate Kashmir. They're going to have to go and liberate all of Kashmir, and that water issue is do or die now.
Yeah.
Right? And then on top of that, it's not just Kashmir anymore, because their position it's getting stronger and stronger. There's Kashmir, there's other places around there. What about, it's other issues. What about this Ram Masjid you've been making, this Ram temple and whatever? You destroy the Babri Masjid. What about these issues? What about the Muslims of India? Yeah. What about the Sikhs of India? What about the way you treat minorities in India? So I think, from my gut feeling over here, it's what my other channel's all about. The Pakistani military, the Indians know they've got a war coming with Pakistan, a major war.
I think one of the setbacks that Pakistan has imposed on itself, and this is the case for the entire Muslim world, why are we viewing our issues through the nation state lenses? Can you not see the potential with Bangladesh?
Yeah.
Can you not see the potential with Afghanistan?
Yeah.
It goes back to that point, isn't it? That if you genuinely implemented the system of Islam that would unite not only Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, you've got 230 million Muslims within India.
That's it.
What can you utilize with them?
Yeah.
You've got 3 million Muslims in Kashmir.
Yeah.
How are you going to utilize?
Right.
And then you've got China as a potential ally.
Yeah.
You've got the rest of the Muslim world, Iran, oil. I was going to say the Gulf, Pakistan. The military of the Gulf is Pakistan.
Yes.
More or less.
Yes.
They train them, they fund them, they do these co-piloting for. So much potential there, but because we've been divided and carved up in these different nation states, we unfortunately have such a colonized mindset.
Yes.
We view ourselves through the nation state lens. The reason why the nation state lens was designed in the first place is to keep you weak.
Exactly, yes.
Because they know they're not stupid. They know if Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh and the Muslims in India had a common unity, a common political understanding, game over.
That's a major world power.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, maybe even just of those countries alone, they should be given a United Nations seat. Yeah.
As a bloc.
Yeah, as a bloc. Yeah. You add Indonesia or you add Turkey, add Saudi to me, then you have to give them a UN seat.
I don't think they're going to get a seat at the UN.
Yeah. No. But at that point, they can sit around and say, you're going to give us one right now. We're going to make you give us one.
I actually believe, just purely as a theory, that if the Khilafah were to set up its own union or block of nations, for the nations that have lost out the most, South America, Africa, the Far East.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the nation would even move from the UN, where they have been oppressed by the veto and by Western imposition, this kind of stuff. They would want to move over to a more another bloc, another union of nations led by the Muslims, led by the
Right.
Khilafah. Like, we are going to promise you X, Y, Z.
Okay. So look, man, here's what it is, right? Is the Western economies are crumbling. They're all tied up in debt.
Yeah.
The whole fiat currency system is coming to an end now,
Yeah.
right? Along with that will be Western power. Trump's going to make one last play with crypto. This is my humble opinion, right? But ultimately, gold's going to come back stronger. Gold and silver is going to be, it always was the original currency.
Yeah.
Everything else is just paper money. It's monopoly money, not backed by anything. So at the moment, the Western nations have had this strength where the Americans can print as many dollars as they want and just spend it, right? Claim it's got gold behind it. No one really knows. This whole system has to go. Once that system goes, right, the whole Western power, the main powerhouse, the main power behind them crumbles. Then it becomes a more of an even playing field.
Yeah.
And that's my gut feeling over here. That's what we're seeing. That's what's causing all the problems over here. That's why prices are increasing over here so much. You could always go to Pakistan. You take £10, you're rich straight away over there.
Yeah.
You know, because of the strength of the currency. You take away the strength of the currency, you take away the strength of the economy over here. We're so mired in debt at the moment.
Yeah.
And we're just kidding ourselves. And the Chinese are taking over.
Yeah.
You know, the Far Eastern economies, not all of them. You've got China, you've got some others as well. They're all becoming much stronger at the moment now. And I would say the day Pakistan and other nations turn around, in particular the World Bank, and say, up yours, we ain't paying you anything, what are they going to do?
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast as well, like everybody wants to be with the winner.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why so much of the world's attention moved towards democracy, secularism, the West in general, is because the West was, and to a degree is, winning.
Yes.
Economically,
Yes,
militarily.
absolutely.
They are the sole power on the face of the earth. There is no real alternative. I think, like you mentioned, now that's waning.
Yes.
Now that's becoming weaker. People no longer have the respect to the West that they once did.
Absolutely.
And this is the case in the Muslim world as well, that once upon a time we wanted to be like you. We wanted to create ourselves in your image. You know, we wanted a Western version of Western version of Pakistan and all these other nations. Actually, now we're looking towards you and thinking, hang on, you guys have got big problems we don't want to get involved in.
Absolutely.
And so naturally you go back, you would assume, to another alternative. Like, hang on, why is it that we need to be so imitating you all the time? I think the funding is going to dry up to the regimes in the Muslim world who keep a hold. Remember, our regimes are paid.
Yeah.
Our education curriculum and syllabus is decided and designed by
Controlled,
certain
yeah.
sitting in London and Washington and these kind of places. I think when the funding dries up, when the intelligence dries up, when the dictating of education syllabuses dries up, even there have been cases where certain demands, if you want like a certain loan or a certain deal or whatever it is, make sure that you stop the preaching of XYZ. Once all that dries up, like you mentioned, now you have more of a fairer, even playing field. The Muslim sentiment is already going one direction anyway.
Yeah.
Do you see? The West is waning, China's, economically rising itself. The Muslim world is in a turmoil that inshallah can be very quickly fixed. You're moving in that direction anyway. Like you mentioned that the status of the world is based on events. Actually, these are the key events that are taking place right now that's pushing the Muslim Ummah to think. Think about, do you really want to be trying to implement a system that's dying in front of your eyes? Like, that is a very shallow way of thinking about things. You don't imitate something that's dying.
Absolutely.
Fair enough, imitating it in its absolute prime. That's one discussion to be had, but you're imitating it now. You want to create yourself in the image of a system that is not fit for mankind.
Spot on. I would say, for example, in China, the economic system is better. In China, the military system is better. The Western nations don't have them by the balls. It doesn't work like that, right? I would say in China, the weapon systems are better, right? That's the way it's going. For example, now in Turkey, the weapon systems are better. Is the financial system better? No, because they've still got, the Westerners still control them. But that control is slipping. It's fading fast. And At some point, it's going to reverse. I think what's going to happen, we're going to see events happening far quicker than we think. And then obviously we're on the verge of 2026 now, yeah. I think within the next 10, 15 years, we're going to be living in a completely different world. Completely, the balance of power will have shifted. Russia will be fading fast, right? With China, it's a production powerhouse. It can produce. America in Second World War became a bit of a production powerhouse, building so many planes and tanks. That's dwarfed by China now. Right? If Pakistan was to go to war with India right now, they could make them as many planes as many tanks as they needed in a day. You won't have to worry about it, right? If China, this is why China is crucial to this as well, because if China joins in any war with Pakistan against India, India is getting smashed to pieces. Right? China has millions of drones and missiles which are now old generation. So either you use them or you lose them. They're getting replaced with the next generation ones, which are far more sophisticated. Now they started thinking we can't really sell them. What do we do with them? And they know the Western nations are ganging up against them because China is the biggest threat to the Western economy than we've ever seen. So what they're going to have to do is, I think they're going to actively, they know Pakistan's going for war with India. They're going to be backing Pakistan fully and actively getting involved. CPAC, which they need, right, it's better off running through Kashmir or running through India and Punjab and running through Bangladesh. That's what they want. So they know you've got the Quad who are lined up against them. The weakest member of the Quad has always been India, right? If Japan goes to war with China, certain Western nations will have to get involved because it's Japan, isn't it? It's been their main ally. If Australia goes to war against China, they're definitely getting involved because it's a white nation. You can't have a white nation losing to a coloured nation. That's how they think, right? India gets involved in a war against China. Oh well, it is what it is. They're not going to risk their own troops. They might give them some weaponry, but even that they'll be selling to them. That's why I think China is all crucial over here. But inshallah, let's see how things pan out. I think what we're going to see is the next 15 years are going to be very, very interesting, and things will drastically change. And we can only hope and pray that they pan out in a much better, equal, fairer world. So that's the hope over here.
Inshallah. I think you're right. I think the next few years we're living in a very, very interesting time, in a time where over the last 80, 90, 100 years, Ummah's kind of emotions and sentiments have been shackled.
Yeah.
I think now we're seeing a larger sentiment, a larger demand. Ummah's looking for a change.
Yes.
There's so many changes taking place and so many events going on, even in Sudan and Palestine, changes in Syria and Afghanistan and Bangladesh. You've got so many other events taking place in the Muslim world. Inshallah, I do have not only a strong hope, but this is a promise of Allah. Change, the establishment of a rightly guided caliphate is going to return.
I think you're right.
It is going to be reestablished. When, how, who, what, we don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, right. Do you want to finish on any last words you want to say? You want to finish on, or any points you want to make?
I don't know. I think we've covered almost every topic that we can think of. It's been an hour and a half or so.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I'd say for these kind of topics, for ourselves, for our audiences, from an Islamic point of view especially, it's always good to have not just the bone but the meat on the bone. We are going to be the ambassadors of Islam. So people are going to be coming to us with questions. How does Islam end poverty? How does Islam end political injustice? How is Islam going to deal with the so many different issues of the 21st century? I think it's really important for us, not only as people on social media and this kind of stuff, but men with a message, that we need to be very clear, very to the T, meat on the bone. How is it that Islam is going to look? If we're saying that the future is for Islam, if we're saying that the future is for the implementation of the Islamic alternative, what is that going to look like? I think we need to be in a position where we are able to demonstrate this to people. I
think that's a very good point, that. I mean, my approach has always been, as long as I get people thinking about it, that's half the battle won. Get them thinking about this. that, you know, and that's what I've been trying to do with some of my content, that look, when it comes to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the whole situation can change very quickly, you know, and geopolitics changes, you know, events happen, things change, nothing stays the same. So inshallah, fingers crossed, half the battle is to make them open their eyes. And I think we're getting there, and I think we're going to see more and more people on social media just doing the same as us, you know, making this kind of content, making people aware, and inshallah people will be opening their eyes as well. So keep up the good work, Luqman. Very impressed, yeah. Right. And inshallah, I look forward to having you on again, my friend. Yeah?
100%.
Thank you so much, yeah. Ranjha Sahab.